Welcome to the Half Yard Line. I'm Tim.
I am Luke.
And Luke, we have just wrapped up a rambunctious week 6 in NFL football.
Don't
we
hear
have
that
had
word very often
some
anymore.
stories to talk about this week. Normally, you and I, Luke, don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on what everyone else is focusing on in the NFL. We figure you can get your highlights, you can get your scores, those types of things from other folks. Brock Purdy was the name of the game for the first 5 weeks. That was not a big topic of conversation on our show today, though. Not to spoil the surprise, probably going to be talking about the same kind of things everybody else is talking about, but for different reasons. Yes?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we said before we started recording, this is one of those rare occasions, rare occasions where the half-yard line and the mainstream media, Tim, line up, which is that we're talking about crappy teams beating good teams. To your point, and I said before we started, I feel like we have more kind of like squatters' rights on this conversation because we're always talking about crappy teams and no one else is, or at least they're not talking about them that much. But yeah, the two big storylines of week 6 were Niners losing to the Browns, Eagles losing to the Jets, two downtrodden franchise stalwarts in the Browns and the Jets.
Absolutely.
Stalwarts. Inner circle downtrodden franchises.
Yeah, 2 of the top 3, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure, 2 of the top 3. Beating out the last 2 undefeated teams in the league who have been scoring points in the Niners case, or just kind of bruising other teams in the Eagles case more so. But yeah, we're going to touch on both those games, have a little bit of a shuffle and a shake through the whys and wherefores on those. Before we get into any of that, we invite you, fair listener, as always, to find us on a podcast app you're listening to this on and hit subscribe, leave us a rating and a review. If you're watching us on YouTube, greetings, as always. Hit the subscribe button and you won't miss any videos. There's also a notification bell somewhere in the down there area. So if you hit that, you won't miss any videos as they come up throughout.
I have to say, Luke, our production people are getting pretty good.
They are getting very good.
The video quality improving, pretty fun stuff there. So if you haven't checked us out on YouTube, do that.
Yeah, we'll have to give them a raise from their current $0 budget.
That's right.
But yes, definitely find us on the tube. If you haven't, much appreciated. Leave us a comment. Do all that good stuff. Love to touch base and argue with people about the NFL. As always, you can find us on all the other social media platforms at Half Yard Line Pod. I clicked on Threads the other day, Tim. It's still there.
Is it still there?
Just wanted to check that it's still up and running. So for the
do we have any followers on Threads or friends or whatever you have on Threads?
I didn't check. I'll be completely.
What do they call them? Do you know what they call them?
They're just friends on there. I think that's what they call them. Everything.
Yeah,
on the videos. I don't know. Reels.
No, I just thought it was Threads. Thread is on a spool.
Like
it was a bad joke. Sorry.
Yeah, needles. I don't know, but either way, we are there. We're also on TikTok, Instagram. X, Twitter, whatever. At Half Yard Line Pod, hit us up on any of those as well. But Tim, it was, as you said, a rambunctious week, an old-timey word, which I very much enjoyed. And we're going to kick off with Niners-Browns. How about Niners-Browns? Dig into this game a little bit. The Browns, the most downtrodden franchise in the entire NFL. I just want to lead off with that.
So, by far. And it's not
And they're starting PJ Walker, who is, I think journeyman is probably overselling how much NFL football he's actually played, but he's played some.
Well, first of all, in the other side of a couple things. First, the Steelers took the week off. Apparently, the rest of the NFL who play in the AFC North felt like also taking the week off, so thanks for that. You're going into the off week, or the bye week as a Steeler fan thinking, all right, we're on top of the division. The Ravens are playing the Titans, but it's in London. Anything can happen in London, right?
Yeah.
The Browns are playing the Niners.
I can confirm that's not necessarily true, but let's just go with it for NFL purposes.
Sure. The Browns are playing the Niners. That's done.
That's a done deal.
That's a done deal. And the Bengals, are not that great playing anybody. You'd think they have a shot, and they're playing middling. I mean, listen, it's not like they were
a little scrappy this season.
The Seahawks have been playing well, Gino, right? I mean, it's not a juggernaut team, but I thought they were more likely to beat them than they were to lose to them. But anyhow, the AFC North 3-0 on the week, and the Steelers sitting at home going. But anyhow, neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. Yeah, Browns, Niners. If you haven't heard, the Browns beat the Niners. One note for PJ Walker, and then I'll hand it back to you, Luke. Did you know PJ Walker has started 8 games in his career? and he is 5-3 in those 8 games. So by
Hey.
the way, we're judging Brock Purdy basically an above average NFL starter.
PJ Walker, I mean, we remember him last year fondly. We spoke about it on the pod. He had that ridiculously crazy Hail Mary throw for Carolina against the Falcons, a ridiculous end to that game, which went to overtime when it never should have, and then continued when it shouldn't have. Excuse me. PJ can launch the ball. I mean, that was like the most underrated, ridiculous throw of the entirety of last season, like rolling left, launched it about 65 yards or something. It was crazy. But Tim, I wanted to lead this off with one of our favorite sort of sub things on this pod, which is me quizzing you about NFL things. Because PJ Walker became the 36th Browns quarterback since 1999 when the team returned to Cleveland. We can make this as quick as you want. I wanted to see how many of these you could do because we did Browns coaches in the offseason. For those that listened to the preview podcast before the season started, we did the Browns coaches for the last 20 or so, since Bill Belichick, actually, which was the early 90s. And Tim,
and I would like to say I did a pretty damn good job.
Correct, I believe. And I think you did it in chronological order. So let's just see.
I will not do the quarterbacks in chronological order because they were
Browns
all over the place.
quarterbacks can you name since 1999 to today?
All right. Well, let's start with Deshaun Watson.
We'll start with Deshaun Watson
and PJ Walker. So I have 2, and I feel very good about the 2. I think so Baker Mayfield, obviously.
Correct.
Tyrod Taylor started at least one game.
Tyrod Taylor.
Johnny Football.
Johnny Football.
So around Johnny Football would have been. He took over from Brian Hoyer, right?
Brian Hoyer, correct. Author of a big comeback against my Titans, I remember with no great joy.
It reminds me of the Tebow game. Anyhow, there was at least one McCown. Let's say Josh McCown.
It was Josh McCown. Yeah.
I always get Josh McCown and Cade McNown. McCown. Yeah, confused. But it was Josh McCown.
Cade McNown not on this list. I will give you that one. Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy.
Oh, who did they draft? He was like 38 years old. Brandon Weeden. There was a backup from the Seahawks. Seneca Wallace.
Seneca Wallace. I didn't think you'd get that one. There's actually another backup from the Seahawks on this list somewhere as well.
Charlie Fry.
This is good.
Brady Quinn.
Trent
Dilfer.
Correct.
Tim Couch. Now I'm running out, guys.
Tim Couch. Yep.
Win. It's ridiculous. Spurgeon Win. Yeah, no,
drafted
that's just
ahead of Tom Brady, I believe.
Name Hall of Fame. Yeah,
that's
no, he always. Yeah, when you see the jerseys with all of them listed on the back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe one or two more here.
There's one kind of obvious one you haven't got, I would say.
Oh.
Probably the author of the best Browns season since they relocated, apart from Baker Mayfield.
Derek Anderson.
Yeah,
okay.
The rest of these, there's
hang on.
one or
just
two more I think you could
give me. Well, now. See, I was ready to stop, and you had to say that. All right. So the Tim Couch year, he did not start every game. So who else was there? That would have been Ty Detmer.
It was Ty Detmer. That's a good pull.
There was the illustrious Kelly Holcomb.
Oh,
damn it. Bruce Gradkowski.
Dr. Gradkowski.
I don't think I know anymore, Luke. Is there any other one that I should even...
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
how
9,
many more
10,
are there?
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's 17 more. You've
17
got just over
more?
half. You've got 19
hang
of
on,
36.
Hang
A
on.
lot of these guys did not play many games.
Oh, Jake Delhomme.
Is correct.
I'm just going to start naming quarterbacks who've played in the league, and
That's
some
actually
of them
a pretty
are going
good.
to be on here.
It's actually a pretty good bet.
Well, I said there was at least one McCown. Was Luke McCown also on the list?
I didn't want
God
to tell
damn
you,
it,
but
there
he
were
was.
two. There were
both.
two McCowns.
I actually remember just a little bit before I moved to the States and everything. When I was a teen getting into this fine sport of American football, I'm buying time for you here, Tim, with this anecdote.
Well, my brain is basically.
I remember staying up extremely late to watch. I think it was a Monday night game. It must have been a Monday night game. It starts at 1:00 in the morning in the UK, but I decided to stay up late. It was on basic terrestrial TV, we call it, like basic cable for you guys, right? So I remember watching it. It was the Browns versus the Dolphins, and it was awful. And I watched the whole game, and I thought, well, this is awful. But I watched the whole thing, and I thought, well, I really must be into this sport. And the reason I say that is the longest play of that game. Luke McCown was the starter for the Browns in said game. I can't remember who the Dolphins QB was, but it was someone terrible. And the longest play of the game was Luke McCown throwing a long interception, which was then returned for a long gain, but fumbled. And then the Browns recovered it and ran it and advanced the ball like 20 or so yards. And it was the longest play of the whole game.
That's incredible.
Was a fumble from an interception. So that's
listen. I've come up with one more while you were away, and I can. So Doug Peterson is one.
Doug Peterson is one.
And I only remember that obviously because he did things after he played quarterback. And I'm gonna guess two more, but I don't think either one of them are right. Connor Shaw never started, did he?
Connor Shaw started a game. I literally don't know who that is.
So he was the backup. So there was Hoyer and Manziel, and Shaw was there the same year, but I didn't think he actually started.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of old guys. So did I say Trent Dilfer?
You did say Trent Dilfer.
Okay. Jeff Garcia.
Jeff Garcia is correct.
And then did RG3 start while he was there?
He did start when he was there.
Did he? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that's all I got. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
By the way, that's a valiant effort and has certainly.
And I've still missed double digits.
You've missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You've still got 11 left, by the way. So you've done 25.
If we had a 2-hour podcast, I'd keep going.
Well, we're on the way.
Keep going.
But the remaining names, 11 illustrious names. Ken Dorsey, current Bills offensive coordinator.
I forgot about. Oh, okay. Yep.
Thad Lewis.
I don't know who that is.
Jason Campbell.
Oh.
Austin Davis. Cody Kessler.
Oh. Okay.
Deshaun Kaiser. Kevin Hogan. Case Keenum.
Who? No.
Nick Mullins, who I don't remember ever playing for the Browns. Jacoby Brissett.
This is the guy who played out in San Francisco?
Yeah, San Francisco. Nick Mullins. Jacoby Brissett. And the last one was actually from this year, Tim. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who started last week's game.
Oh.
But that's,
right. I missed one from this year.
I'm going to give you a B+ on the getting 25 Browns quarterbacks since 1999 out of 36. You've expended a lot of energy, Tim, so why don't I take first pass at the game itself now that we've done
there was a game? Yes, we should do that.
Yeah. I mean, PJ, the 36th and most recent Browns quarterback. Some throws where you thought this guy can really throw the ball like very hard, but it's about as accurate as like a sprinkler. Like just kind of goes.
There was
left,
some inconsistency,
right.
I think.
A little bit reckless, and it's no exaggeration to say that wasn't really the quarterbacking performance that got the Browns over the line in this one. No. The thing that I took away from it,
he tried to give it away at the end.
Yeah, we touched on the Niners briefly, but I mean in previous pods. But really, what the Browns did is defensively just won this game up front, and the Niners have been mauling teams. Obviously, Trent Williams headlines that offensive line. He's very good. Skill position players out the wazoo. Purdy's been very comfortable. He's not been affected that much, or when he has, it's been comfortable evasion. He can get the ball out quick. The Browns didn't play that complex of a defense. They just kept playing man, which teams don't play man against the Niners because the skill position players will just ice you one-on-one all the time. Now, Debo went out early, and I know McCaffrey went out later. They still have very good skill position players, so it's still a bold move. But what was really interesting is that they managed to pressure Purdy without really having to blitz. So they only blitzed on a third of his dropbacks, but they got 14 pressures and got 3 sacks. In the straight dropback game, in this affair, this clash, Purdy was only 40% completion when he was just dropping back and throwing the ball. Now, the Shanahan offense does have a lot of rollouts, boots, and so on, but it just kind of spoke to they got him out of rhythm. We touched on it last week talking about how Mac Jones has looked like, I think the technical term is ass
Yes,
and
that's
comparing
it.
him
Yep.
to Purdy, who's just been like drop back throw. It looks very easy, mechanical. Purdy'd only taken 11 sacks all season if you include this game. So he'd only taken 8 coming in. And when he was clean in this game and not, it makes a big difference to any quarterback. But I think this is probably the first time this year we've seen him moved off the spot, right? We always talk about quarterback. Get the quarterback off the spot, see if you can make him make plays. And he's made some plays this year, but I felt like it was the consistency with which they were doing it really made him uncomfortable. You saw him miss some throws. He missed McCaffrey on a long, what would have been a touchdown. He missed a couple of other passes, which we've been seeing him complete fairly comfortably throughout his starting career to date. And the Browns, 4-man rush, play man coverage. If you do that well, it's really, really hard to play offense in the NFL. And I think this was a good lesson in that. You don't have to be Dick LeBeau or one of these, Wink Martindale, Brian Flores, blitz all the time, crazy, exotic, whatever. You can just line up and play football. And if you guys are good enough, and if you guys are disciplined enough and your front four is very good, you can win games doing that, even against a team as skilled as the Niners. So that was my main takeaway, is just simple defense against a great offensive team, and the good defense beat the good offense. Okay, a little bit of rain probably helped the Browns, but that was my main thing I took away, is Jim Schwartz et al. Did a hell of a job defensively for the Browns to win this game for them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, absolutely unequivocally true. And we're going to talk briefly here in a moment about, another game where a team that shouldn't have lost to a team that shouldn't have won. And the defense is going to be a theme, right? You're going to hear that again. And in this one, I think staying with the Niners is always so important. This game was 10-7 at the half. The Niners never got one of those big leads. And that's such a, you say it obvious. It sounds obvious, right? Don't let the Niners get out to a big lead, but it's a lot easier to say don't let the Niners get out to a big lead than it is to not let the Niners get out to a big lead. So Cleveland's defense early staying in the game is so important. And I say that acknowledging that this game started about as badly as possible for Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
San Francisco drives down the field and scores a touchdown on the first drive, 5 plays, 84 yards, only one of which was a pass, and it wasn't really a pass.
No, it was a shovel, wasn't it, to McCaffrey?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the little shovel to McCaffrey.
Great for the
block.
stat sheet if you're a quarterback. Those ones, just here you go.
Yeah, I mean, he handed it to him behind the line, effectively. And you're sitting there going, "Oh, okay." So you've got it was a 13-yard pass with 15 yards after the catch. To tell you something. So you just got run all over, right? If you're Cleveland, you come out and you've got your, PJ Walker, obviously not your normal starter, out there this week. Not even your backup starter. You got your third starter out there, and what does he do but throw an interception to Fred Warner, who, by the way, the coolest play of this game. You talking about plays people don't talk about anymore. PJ Walker's tackle of Fred Warner after this interception was legit.
So I do like when a quarterback actually gets in there, because I know it was who was the quarterback who got injured tackling someone on a return years ago, and everyone told them to stop doing it.
Stop.
It broke
remember.
His shoulder.
It was a big person too.
It was a big name. Anyway, I should remember, but I don't. Anyway, point being, good job, PJ.
Yeah, no, it was a heck of it. I mean, form tackle took him down. It was well done. And if you're Cleveland, it's very easy. Gave up a touchdown, big interception on the next drive. They start the drive on the Cleveland 26. You're going to give away points. Big hold by Cleveland here. Actually end up pushing them. They lose 10 yards on the drive, the Niners do. And then Moody misses his first field goal of the season on a 54-yarder that ends up wide left. That is probably not wide left from 43 or 44 rather. And so those 10 yards that the defense pushed him back, and I understand there was a false start, but they didn't let him, get anything out of that. They ultimately did what they needed to do. Anytime you start with an 8-yard negative play by McCaffrey, and you saw this a couple of times, Cleveland's defense down in the red zone. You didn't see it much earlier in the game, but when they got down in the red zone, first and goal twice, the Niners had first and goal, and both times significant negative plays by the Browns defense. They were both run plays and both lost 4 or 5 yards on each one. I mean, it was really big time penetration in areas where it really mattered. And you talk about leverage plays or critical plays or whatever your preferred term is, third downs, goal line, red zone.
It's where the
Cleveland
rubber
was
meets the road in the NFL, right? Those are the money downs.
100%. And Cleveland really showed up in the money downs here. I also have to take, and we said last week we're going to do a Brock Purdy podcast. We were waiting for the right moment. This is not that moment. We're not saying, see, we told you Brock Purdy's terrible because he played one game that was a little below average. But you've got to worry a little bit if you're a 49er fan that Purdy can only be what he's been this year with a big lead or when the pressure's not really on. I heard some people talking about how he drove him down the field at the end and then they just missed the kick. And
yeah, I heard that.
Technically, I suppose that's true, but let me just give you, here's that drive, if I could. Brock Purdy, pass incomplete. Brock Purdy, pass incomplete. Brock Purdy, pass incomplete, penalty, pass interference. Brock Purdy, pass short left to Ayuk. This is the one Ayuk took to, the 25-yarder.
That was a great play by Ayuk too. He made like two guys miss. It was awesome. It was really good.
It was a fantastic football play, but had nothing to do with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, pass incomplete. Brock Purdy, pass short right for 8 yards, and then short left for 9 yards. So, I mean, he was, 2 of 7 on the drive for 15 yards, and then Ayuk's craziness. I don't know. That's not what you've been getting out of the guy. And he has been good all year. His air yards in this game were atrocious. He wasn't moving the pocket. He wasn't doing the things that he was doing. About 40% completions. He was taking sacks. He just didn't look like the Brock Purdy we've had. And you could say Debo went out and then CMC went out, and you're asking a lot of the guy.
It's a great defense.
Yeah, without those stars. And that's true. It is asking a lot. But the point is they haven't really asked a lot of him all year. And so the first time you ask a lot of him, maybe less than you were hoping.
I actually think this is a good thing, right? If you're a Niners fan, I think this is a good thing. Number one, I just think the unbeaten, unless you're going to go unbeaten, which is just not really going to happen.
Right.
It's week 6. The pressures, if you're going to lose one, would you rather it's week 6 or week 17? Like, you'd rather just lose right now, right? Surely. The other thing is more, I think, from the evaluation standpoint on Purdy, because, like you said, we're not going to make this a Purdyology, but you say it's all been pretty easy for him. Even going back to last year, really, it's been everything's worked. He's not throwing interceptions very often, or this year, not at all. The offense is humming. They're scoring 30 points a week. There's all pros at every position. The defense is balling. Like, you have to know what he's going to be like when he's shit or not even. I mean, he wasn't awful in this game. He was not great, right? He was definitely below average. Quarterback performance. You have no idea what this guy is going to look like when he's under pressure, not real pressure, not like the pressure the Browns put on him. And you don't know what it's like when he plays badly. How does he respond? If he came back on the last drive and was like zinging balls, all the confidence in the world, you go, great. You can learn something from that. You can learn something from this, right? He's going to go back to the meeting room, the practice field, and go like, right, now I've had a bad game at the NFL level. You've had a bad game probably at every level you've ever played at. How do I respond to that? And I think this is a good thing. I mean, he threw the pick, obviously, to Emerson, which was a bad throw. I mean, on that drive, you mentioned the plays. The first play of that last drive, he really should have thrown an interception again. I mean, he threw it behind, I think it was Ayuk, and it hit the defensive back in both hands, and he dropped it. So it wasn't a great game for him. So yes, it's classic quarterback over hybrid. If he led them down the field and they kicked the field goal, he's the best QB in the league, blah, 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 clutch gene, all the usual sports talky crap. That wouldn't have been any more true just because they missed. Do you know what I mean? It kind of cuts both ways.
100%. Yep.
So I think it's actually good if you're a Niners fan, Purdy takes some smelling salts for a week, comes back. If he comes back and he's awesome again, brilliant. If he comes back and he's ropey, you know a little bit more about the guy under center, because frankly, you have to know that, because in the playoffs, it's not going to be rock'em sock'em 35 points a week, most likely. So I think that's a good thing in the long run for the Niners, because you can do some evaluation around the guy. I did think, just to flip it back to the Browns, PJ Walker threw, I think, 2 picks right in this game. He could have definitely thrown more than that. There was some errant stuff, as I mentioned up the top.
Their last drive,
Their last drive, I mean, really not impressive at all. I mean, he airmailed a slant about 15 miles over Elijah Moore's head. Yeah. Talk about hidden plays. And Gibson launched into him completely needless. It was 3rd and 10, 15-yard penalty. Now the Browns have some life. They then run it effectively for the first time all day. Then Walker almost throws a pick in the end zone, and he should have slid down to the ground. So San Francisco saved a timeout so they could drive down the field. So the Browns did their best downtrodden-y stuff. Like, they really
Yeah, they tried to lose. Yeah,
they did good. They did good, honest, downtrodden franchise work, but they still came out with the win. Other thing I haven't heard mentioned, by the way, is the Browns missed a field goal as well. So I know the Niners missed two, but like these things tend to not come out in the wash so much.
no,
but yeah,
I mean, listen,
credit to the Browns, but I think the good thing is that like it's good news for the Browns because hey, they won a game, and maybe Watson comes back and he looks hopefully better. I don't know if you're a Browns fan, but the Niners, you're lost, but I think it's a good loss in the way that you can at least take this forward and see like, okay, now what are we going to be after having taken a little bit of punch in the face?
Just to be clear, though, we love a good drive chart here on the half-yard line. Here's the Browns drive chart in their biggest win of the year. Interception,
good one.
Missed field goal, punt. Touchdown, punt, field goal, punt, interception, field goal, end of game.
Tim.
Not how you draw it up, right? Like, obviously the Browns were very happy. They beat a very good team. The Niners, look, make no mistake, Brock Purdy is still Brock Purdy. He's the same guy, regardless of whether that's good or bad or mediocre or whatever he was last week. He's still the same guy. The offense is still run by the same coach. The position players are still excellent. The defense is still on fuego. The Niners are going to be fine, and this is a huge win for the Cleveland Browns as an organization. But you look up and down and you say, normally to beat a team like this, you really got to play lights out. And the Browns did not play lights out. The Niners did not show up in the way that you would think that they would. I got one stat for you on the downtrodden Browns that blew my mind when I read it. So I don't know if you know, but the Browns are the number one defense in the NFL in yards allowed.
I did know that.
Do you know how many yards they have allowed per game?
Well, against the Titans, they allowed fewer than 100 yards against us. So that's going to help, right? In the same way Miami got 700 yards or whatever it was against Denver. So that helps inflate the numbers. Yards per game, I'm going to say 200.
Okay. Let me help you a little bit because I think it requires a little bit of context. The second best team in the NFL when it comes to statistical yards allowed per game is Baltimore at 260. Okay?
Yep.
The Browns have exactly 200.4.
Wow.
They are 60 yards better than second. To me, that, I mean, and by the way, they're allowing 80 yards rushing and 120 yards passing. So
120 yards passing in this day and age
in the NFL in 2023.
Absolutely mind blowing that you could even, if you were doing 220, you'd say that's fairly good. Like you wouldn't be turn your nose up at allowing 200 passing yards a game this NFL era that we're in.
The best part about it to me is you look down at the teams that they played and you go, okay. All right, Tim. Just relax a little bit. They played the Bengals when they were bad. They played the Steelers, who are still bad. They played the Titans, who are bad. They played the Ravens, who were,
who have been up and
best.
Down.
Yeah, they beat them that game. Right, they were good that day. And they played the Niners. The Niners are the only real complete team on that schedule. And you go, yeah. But when they played the one good team on their schedule, you know how many yards they allowed to the Niners?
I don't know, 230 or something.
Total team yards for the Niners was 215. So right on their average, They allowed 107 through the air and 108 on the ground. So still doing it the way they've been doing it against every other team. So clearly doesn't matter who the Browns are playing. Don't count on more than 200 yards.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. And a team that's not had a lot to cheer about really, ever. So good for them. A good win for the Browns.
Yeah. A good defense keeps you in any game, right? That's the thing,
defense.
Right? You start talking about teams that can win a couple they don't deserve to and all of a sudden find themselves in an interesting place in the playoffs. And if you're a DFI team, if you're Cleveland and you're looking at your offense going, we can't do anything. Knowing that all you're going to need to do is put up 19 points, you're in every game. You're in every single football game.
Yeah. No, it's great for the Browns, and it was certainly impressive to do it against a team which is just so loaded at every position, and the offense, like you say, didn't even really help them that much. It wasn't PJ Walker had a crazy day, or Amari Cooper made some great plays. Ford had a couple nice runs. Hunt scored the touchdown, but it wasn't an overwhelming offensive performance. It was really the defense getting the job done against what has been the best offense to watch in the NFL, apart from Miami. Speaking of Tim, linking nicely to the next game we're going to touch on today's pod, a downtrodden franchise that does very little on offense against a really good team from the NFC and still wins, who are undefeated coming in. We're going to talk about Eagles, Jets. The Jets season so far makes almost zero sense, which I feel like is quite fitting. Aaron Rodgers goes down in the first week of the season after 4 snaps. They pull out a crazy miracle punt return on the last play of the game, touchdown to win that. You're coming into this game against the Eagles. The Eagles are, a class team, one of the best teams in the NFL, and you beat them as well. I really don't understand. This team's 3-3. Robert Saleh's doing a hell of a job to keep that team motivated after the Rodgers fiasco. Because really, watching this game, I didn't take away anything about the Jets that I didn't already know, because it's basically now exactly the same team as last year. As in, the defense is really good. And I think defense is playing really better this year than it was last year. They're playing 100%. Fantastic. I want to give a special shout out to a man from your alma mater, Tim, Quincy Williams from Murray State.
Murray State racer.
Balling. Absolutely balling. Got a pick in this game. He's been all over the field. The Jets, the main thing I took away is they're just so physical. They were hitting everyone. Special teams, defense, offense. Guys were really kind of down for the cause in this game to put the bodies on the line. But watching them, I just thought, if you're Robert Saleh and you come into the season with all this hope and all this hype, and the front office has done its thing and given you the quarterback that really is the missing piece to this entire roster, really. And then he gets injured. And then it's back to Zach Wilson, who last year we christened the avant-garde QB for his slightly abstract way of playing the position. It's amazing you can get these guys to play this hard. So it's a credit to him and how good of a coaching job that he's done. And really the way the Jets won this game was really similar to how the Browns won their game. I mean, it was almost identical in terms of the, I guess, percentage of blame / credit you want to give to the offense and defense. They didn't blitz that much. They pressured the quarterback a ton. They got turnovers when they needed them. They made just about enough offensive plays. They had a couple of spectacular catches by a star wide receiver. The Browns' Amari Cooper made some great grabs. Garrett Wilson in this game, as he seems to do every week, made a couple of wow plays, which you kind of need to, because Zach Wilson's throwing it to sort of your vague zip code. But it was interesting how parallel these two games were, that they happened in the same week. And I think they kicked off at the same time. So it was really odd to be watching. Or maybe the Browns was the early game, actually. I take that back. But point being, I watched the end of that game, and then I was watching this game going, am I watching the same game? It just changed the jerseys. It was pretty incredible to see 2 downtrodden franchises beat 2 unbeaten NFC teams in basically the exact same way, back-to-back on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and stop me if you heard this before, but it didn't start out well for the Jets. Their first drive was a punt. Their first Eagles drive was a touchdown, and you're sitting there going,
19 plays, Tim, that drive. 19 plays, 91
yards. 1991
And I just thought, you guys, you're making them work for it. 19 plays? That's a lot. That's a lot of plays.
Get off the field, right? I mean, good gracious.
You thought physically you're just going to wear down, and it wasn't to be.
Yeah, and you just thought, okay, well, that's about the way you'd expect it to go. And the Jets do, they manage a field goal in the next drive after what ultimately was sort of it was 11 play, 50-yard drive or something, but it's one of those that I always call a 1-play drive, where you kind of limp along, and then all of a sudden you pop one, and you're like, hey, we could kick a field goal here, and they did. Yep. And then all of a sudden they coax Jalen Hurts into a pick. You're like, wait a minute. And I'll tell you, the majority of this game, Jalen Hurts played well. If you really want to take some pride as a Jets team, I don't think the Eagles gave this game away in the same way that I think the Niners may have to Cleveland. And now, turnovers are always you see them how you want to see them, right? If you're mad at the offense, turnovers are a example of bad offensive play. If you think the defense is amazing, they're takeaways, right? Are they giveaways or takeaways? And you can always argue about that. I thought the defense of the Jets was all over Jalen Hurts all day. And Jalen Hurts 90% of the time made them look silly. He scampered out of a number of sacks. He almost got sacked on the goal line once. The commentator referred to him as a Vaseline covered salmon. Like he was just,
it was Mark Sanchez, right? I'm enjoying Mark Sanchez on the announcing. I have to say, he comes up with some interesting turns of phrase. I enjoyed watching him.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I guess I'd never heard that one, but it looked. I mean, like, how is he not down? And he's falling over, and he's not falling over, and he's dead to rights. He's got a guy hanging off of him, and he's throwing the ball, completing it down the field.
He threw one to amazing play.
Yeah, he threw one to AJ Brown on the other sideline. That was great. He had one that hit Gainwell in the hands that would have been a first down late in the game that allowed the Jets to kind of go do Jets things. And you're just watching this going, he played pretty well. Now, there were some drops that had a little echo of the Steelers-Ravens game where he was not getting bailed out by his receivers in the same way that you think of Jalen Hurts as getting bailed out by his receivers, right? He's got Devontae Smith is obviously a fantastic receiver. They've got
wasn't his
best
couple
day. Of them. No, it wasn't his best
AJ
day.
Brown had 100 and some odd yards and was bodying guys left and right.
That's right. And so you sort of expect that those are the types of games that the Eagles are going to win. And so I did not watch this game live. So I came back and watched it later. And when I did, I expected to see, an Eagles team sort of underperform across the board. A lot of times you talk about letdown games, trap games where and that's not what I saw. I mean, I feel like New York's defense made them earn every yard. And frankly, the Eagles did a pretty good job throughout the game of doing that. The difference in this one, no doubt, was the turnovers. But even allowing the turnovers they allowed, the Eagles defense largely showed up. I mean, the points off turnovers in this one was, 6?
I think it was 10.
Because I forgot the touchdown. The touchdown.
The touchdown.
Yeah, 3
on that note, Tim. I mean, they mentioned on the commentary in this game, the Eagles hadn't allowed a point off a turnover this season coming into this game, which is mind-boggling that that's even possible. So that's pretty impressive. But yeah, they did in this one, and one of them was a touchdown that they let score. So even now, you got 10 points off your turn. There were 3 turnovers,
and one of them was a please walk in.
Yeah, and it was the touchdown you let
4
happen.
turnovers.
Sorry, 3 interceptions and the fumble, right? Yeah. So no, it was certainly not a game where you thought, oh, Jalen Hurts just threw. It's weird 3 interceptions feels like you threw the game away, but there's one that got it in the hands, it pops out, a guy catches it. It's just a random kind of.
That's not him. Another one guy hanging on his hand, it floated on him. I mean, what are you gonna do with that one? He had one pick that was his fault. One.
Yeah, which was really the clincher, which we'll get to in a second.
Terrible throw.
Yeah, it was a terrible throw. But what I found interesting watching it is the thing that occurred to me was the Eagles are a team similar to the Niners in some ways, but I think even more so. It's really about how tough, and physical they are at the line of scrimmage. Like, they're not every game is one at the line of scrimmage, pretty much. But the Eagles, certainly last year and most of the early part of this year, physically, offensive line, defensive line, just dominating, and teams just can't keep up with it. The Jets did a really, really good job to stay not just competitive, but I mean on the defensive line, they were winning often. Jalen Hurts is scrambling. Jalen Hurts is being sacked. Jalen Hurts is running for his life. Again, similar to the Browns. I mean, I mentioned that they only blitzed on a third of Purdy's dropbacks in this game. They only blitzed 6 times on Jalen Hurts passing plays. So only 6 of his 50 dropbacks were blitzes, and they got 21 pressures. That is pretty remarkable to be able to do that. And as you mentioned, many of those pressures could have easily been sacks with a less mobile quarterback because he was kind of making miracles happen in the pocket. Now, he does hold it a lot because he feels like he can make a play. So you do get some extra pressures that way, similar to some of the other guys that have done it in the past, like Russell Wilson, for example, in Seattle will hold it.
The commentator said that all game long. He looks just like Russell Wilson out there.
Except Hurts is a much better athlete than Russell Wilson has ever been, but that's
a better thrower of the football, better basically everything.
What it did occur to me is, watching it, is they're a physical team, run the ball, dominate on the defensive line and so on. I just found it weird that they stopped running it. I know they weren't having a great deal of success in this game running the ball, but why are we having 50 dropbacks in a game when it's close? And there's 19 called runs. Now, if you look at the run pass mix, it's slightly different. Obviously, you account for sacks, and a couple of the run plays that are listed as a run on the box score were Jalen Hurts scrambling. I just found that odd. So I went back and looked. Last season, now, one thing I will say to caveat this, the Eagles run a lot of plays because they control the time of possession in almost every single game they play. So they're going to run the majority of the plays in every game, regardless of who their opponent is. But last season, they only attempted more than 35 passes 6 times in the entire regular season and once in the Super Bowl. This season, they've done it 4 times already, which is each of the last 4 games. They've called 35 or more passing, or 35 or more passes. Forgot what the plural of pass was there. So I just feel like that contributes to them looking a little bit like, we've talked about it, a little bit stilted, a little bit stifled, not quite the Eagles that we know, quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes for people who aren't watching. And I thought that was interesting, right? I found that notable. They're not handing it off as much. Miles Sanders had a pretty good, productive, statistical year last year. He's now gone. Swift has been very good and productive in a kind of hybrid pass run role. They have Gainwell. Penny's a forgotten man. Boston Scott came back. They have backs. They've still got a great offensive line. You have a quarterback who can run the ball. I just felt like it was a little bit too lopsided in how they called the game. And I'm not going to, take analytics bullets for saying, run the ball when it's not working. It's stupid. But I do feel like there is a certain way this offense needs to function. It does need to feature a healthy dose of running. A couple games last year, Hurts ran it a lot. He had 15, 16 carries in some games, which I'm not recommending because he's going to get killed, and he almost did, miss games last year. But it's always been a healthy mix in their offensive potion, if you will, and it has worked. So maybe just something to think about. The other things on the play calling front, they had, as I say, 50 dropbacks, 37 attempts had no play action component at all, and 13 did. Like, that seems weird to me as well. Like, Hurts, even if it's a little show and go, just give him a hesitation. Open the field up a little bit for Jalen Hurts, especially in a game where you're not necessarily generating a ton of yards because they're hard to come by. Would seem like an obvious thing to do, but they didn't do it too much. Credit to the Jets, though. We kind of crapped on the Eagles more than we credited the Jets. By the way, Dalvin Cook plays for the Jets, Tim. I'd completely forgotten about that until I watched this game.
I did not forget about that. I'll tell you what, though. In week 1, I sat in that stadium, and that Brees Hall was clearly on a snap count in week 1, and I'm not sure he's not.
But did he have 2 carries for 105 yards in that game or something, didn't he?
Well, that was the beginning of it, yeah. And you sit there, every time they hand the ball to Brees, he's going for 60, and every time they hand it to Dalvin Cook, he's going for 3 or 2 or -3. And like, what are we doing? But yes, he does play for the team.
Yeah, but the last thing I want to mention, Tim, as far as this kind of game as a whole, we mentioned it with the Browns, like trying to lose the game. You're winning the game. Just win the game. But if you're a downtrodden franchise, which the Browns are and the Jets are, you have to try your damn best to not win. A couple of plays in this game, I want to highlight a couple of moments. The Jets had a free play where, defense jumps offside, you can throw it, which they turned into -15 yards, which I don't think I've ever seen. I've ever seen this happen. Wilson run around for ages, threw it to Garrett Wilson, who had a big gain. Lazard, crackback block, 15-yard penalty. And then the next play dropped a ball that Zach Wilson threw literally at his chest. So you're thinking, oh my goodness, like what is going on? They had 1st and 10 from the 13. Then they got a 3-yard gain. Then they had a 12-yard sack. So they ended up having to kick. But my favorite thing was to getting nearer the end of this game when it's, crunch time. You mentioned not capitalizing on the turnovers. They picked off Jalen Hurts at the start of the 4th quarter, which was, I think, the 3rd turnover of the day, right before the last interception that led to the Brees Hall touchdown. Here's the play sequence for the Jets. After you get an interception, momentum, can we go win this game at home? 1st and 10, sack. 2nd and 16, 6-yard pass completion. Okay. 3rd and 10, false start. 3rd and 15, incomplete. 4th and 15, punt. That was the capitalizing on the Eagles' mistake that they did. Then the Eagles miss a field goal. And you think, great, they've missed a field goal. Let's do something. They go 5 plays, 8 yards, punt. That was it. So I love watching a team that it's like almost some sort of cosmic pressure that says, no, you can't win. You can't win this game. It's not meant to be. And they still managed it. But yeah, they did some good DFIE stuff in this game. Some good downtrodden stuff from the Jets and the Browns, despite the fact that they both won, which I feel like is worth calling out.
No,
it's in the blood.
Absolutely. And I want to be clear, clearly, the Eagles made some mistakes here. I think I said earlier, I think the Jets absolutely were the reason they won this game. Bryce Huff has been an absolute force.
Oh, stud.
Who is
Absolute
this
stud.
guy? I mean, like, you're probably going to tell me he's a number one overall draft pick, and I just didn't
No,
know.
he wasn't. But
yeah.
he's been super productive. I mean, they signed Carl Lawson a couple of years ago to that big contract. He got injured straight away because hashtag Jets, hashtag Downtrodden Franchise. And then I feel like they've now found another guy who can do that. So Lawson's, on his way out the door. Bryce Huff's coming up for a deal. So that you imagine that's going to happen. But another piece to this defensive line that they've got some great pieces. Obviously, Quinnen Williams, Solomon Thomas is in, have made a couple plays. They've got guys running through.
No, and it's interesting to me. There were 15 passes defensed in this game by the Jets. 15,
Wow.
eight different players registered a pass defense. It is unlikely. Most players don't get one in a game. And to get credit with the pass defense, you have to make contact with the football when it's thrown to your receiver, right? So this isn't like I got in the way and he didn't catch it, or after he got his hands on it.
Or it's the guys who bat it down at the line of scrimmage, like the old JJ Watt, get your hand up and you bat it. I think you get one.
So that's the batted pass. That's the batted pass. You get a bat. You get a bat for a defense, or your defense for a bat. That's true.
Right.
But so earlier this year in the game where Miami scored 70, right? There were a lot of plays in that game. There were a lot of passes in that game. There was a lot going on in that game. There was a total between the two teams of 8 passes defensed. There were very, very few games where teams combine for 15 passes defense. The Jets put up 15 on their own, had 8 different players who had one. They were all over the quarterback all day. The number of hits on the quarterback, the number of hurries against the quarterback, all were in. We're not talking about record necessarily, but very, very high numbers of the defensive counting stats that we don't pay a whole lot of attention to, right? We talk about sacks, talk about tackles. Well, guess what? You get a tackle. Somebody gets a tackle on every play. Sacks are great, but they're not particularly regular, right? They're kind of like turnovers in that they happen when they happen.
Next best thing.
But the stuff that you can do to affect the game, the getting between the receiver and the ball and not committing a penalty, the getting after the quarterback and not committing a penalty, the Jets did as well as can be done. And we talk about Breece Hall, obviously. We talk about Garrett Wilson, obviously. We talk about Sauce Gardner, and all rightfully so. But this Jets defense has, I think, 5 or 6 different players who, in their own right, deserve to have some real conversations being had about this team. And it'll be interesting to see how they go the rest of the year. This is a team that's 3-3. I picked them to win 4 games when we thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be their quarterback. They've beaten the Bills, who I don't know if anybody. I mean, generally good. They get bored and decide to lose games sometimes, and that's what happened in Week 1. They beat the Broncos, who are atrociously bad. But the 3 games that they lost by 3, they lost by 5, and they lost by 20 to the Cowboys in Dallas. At home, this team is 2-2. And in the 2 games that they won by a grand total of 12 points. And the 2 games they've lost by a grand total of 8 points. This team is there. They're competitive. They're competitive in at least games at home. They've got a away game, quote unquote, coming up this week against the Giants. Well, next week, they're on bye this week. The Giants. And then they've got the Chargers at home. They're going to go at Raiders, at Bills. This is a team that could very easily be 5-4 or 4-5. And if you'd have told me that after Week 1, after Rodgers' Achilles is done, Jets fans right now, I would have to guess, are as happy as they could possibly be given what's happened so far this season.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, they're a team that's hanging around, playing tough. It's kind of old fashioned football, but it's working. And if they somehow get into the playoffs, I mean, this is a long way to go. Let's not go crazy. In the AFC, as it's constructed, if Salah isn't coach of the year, then they need to just abolish the award, frankly, because he's doing a great job. And you mentioned, Tim, segue alert. Jets defensive players deserving more pub. Seems like a good moment to hand out this week's Jonas Gray Memorial Teaspoon. We're going to honor one of the Jets defensive players. Jets already had a Jonas Gray Memorial Player of the Week in Week 1. Xavier Gibson, who returned the punt for a touchdown to win the game against Buffalo. And this week, Tim, Tony Adams, safety, New York Jets. Tony Adams, who had the pick which led to the Breece Hall touchdown at the end of this game, ultimately the deciding score. Tony
Everybody's
Adams,
got them on his fantasy team, right?
Yeah, I'm not too proud to say I have no idea. I had no idea who this guy was until the other day because why would I?
Because his name is Tony Adams and he plays defense
I can
for
tell
the
you.
Jets.
I can tell you one thing, Tim. Tony Adams, to me, as an Englishman, Tony Adams was the captain of Arsenal in the 1990s, who are a pretty successful football club in the UK. Won a couple of league titles towards the end in the late 90s. And Tony Adams was the captain. He played for England. So when I hit Tony Adams, I'm like, oh, the England centre back. But no, he's a different guy. The Jets getting in on the Jonas Gray Memorial Player of the Week act for the second time this season, as I mentioned. Caveat, as always, just for those unfamiliar, this is the Jonas Gray Memorial Player of the Week given out to a flash in the pan guy you've never heard of, has a great performance. We encourage all and support all Jonas Gray players to go on and have great careers. We don't want them to be Jonas Grays, never be heard from again. Important disclaimer every week.
We also generally note we are aware Jonas Gray is not deceased. It's that we're memorializing his career, not his life.
Yeah. But yeah, Tony Adams, 7 tackles, a TFL, and the pick that we already mentioned.
Not bad.
5'11", 203 pound safety, undrafted in 2022, Tim. Born in the great state of Illinois. He actually went to high school in St. Louis, Missouri, and then went back to Illinois for college. University of Illinois was his alma mater. 3-star high school recruit. He had interest from a couple other regional... Right? Yeah, the Illini, Fighting Illini, yeah. Good logo as well. I like the eye. It's a good... I just like a simple logo.
Solid.
Anyway, sidebar. But he had offers from other regional schools. Bowling Green, Tim, offered to Tony Adams in your home state. Tony Adams had an offer there. Eastern Michigan, Illinois State, Mizzou. So kind of stayed all local. Do you want me to read you his Wikipedia college career section? There's a section, you've got personal life, you got whatever. This is college career. Would you like me to read you the college career section?
Well, yes.
Adams played at Illinois from 2017 to 2021. On October 26th, 2019, against Purdue, he had a 13-yard interception return for a touchdown. That's it. That's the entry. So Jonas Gray players, for those unfamiliar, we like the guys that don't ever get any publicity. This is a guy who his biography page on the Jets website is blank. It's blank. So not
well, and I would have to think that the Illini don't have that many NFL players to
no, they don't produce as many as maybe you would think, right? But yeah, so I did have to do some digging to find information on old Tony. He played 5 years at Illinois, as I mentioned. He was a COVID super senior. They had the extra year of eligibility because of the shortened season due to COVID. 41 games in total for the Illini. Made 9 starts as a corner and a safety in his first 2 years, injured a little bit, but then he was a regular starter for the team for the rest of his college career. 2 picks as a junior, the one I already mentioned, his half of his Wikipedia entry, and the other one also set up a game-winning field goal in an upset win over Wisconsin in 2019, October the 19th, Tim, so almost 4 years to the day as we record this. So the guy, makes a pick, leads to a game-winning field goal in college, makes a pick, leads to a game-winning touchdown in the NFL. So, he's got some form here, does Big Tone. Do you think he went to the Combine by any chance, Tim?
Flair for the dramatic might be a better way to describe it.
Impact player, Tim. It's an impact player. Do you think he went to the Combine?
It couldn't have.
No, sir. He ran a 4.47 at his pro day. He broad jumped 10 feet 10, which is crazy.
A thing.
Again, we've said this on a couple of Jonas Gray players. These guys are all ridiculously crazy athletes. Don't lose sight of the fact that to even be in the NFL, you've got to be a ludicrous athlete. 10 feet 10 inches. If you're listening to this, pause it and you don't walk out 10 feet 10 inches and look back and go from a standing start. There's absolutely no way. So no, he didn't get drafted in 2022, as I mentioned. Stayed on the team and was dubbed a surprising survivor by the New York Post from their initial cut season. So not sure if that's good or bad, but whatever. He started a game last year and played in 11. Sunday was his 4th start of the year, and that was his first career interception. So Tony Adams, safety, New York Jets. Jonas Gray Memorial Teaspoon on its way to you. May not be on its way to you. But the honor is yours for this week,
definitely.
Tim. It was a great play. It's a great little story, and nice to see a guy, not even meriting a Wikipedia page, really getting his day in the sun at the NFL level.
Yeah, so he had 1 quarterback pressure in his 118 snaps last year. He had 11 total tackles last year, including 4 assists, so 7 solo tackles last year. In coverage, last year he was targeted 4 times, allowed 3 catches. This year he has been targeted 6 times, has allowed 5 catches, and has the interception. So well done,
Bang.
Tony Adams, for making it happen when it counts.
But Tim, I've got a surprise for you.
No.
Tony Adams, safety New York Jets, is the Jonas Gray Player of the Week. However,
that's not a surprise. We just talked about
he
that.
is the second Tony Adams who has played in the NFL. And this is a bonus Jonas Gray player from yesteryear. So not official, but we're just going to include him as part of this. So Tony Adams, week 6, 2023 NFL season. Tony Adams, I Googled the name and I looked it up on Pro Football Reference and 2 came up and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And the other guy, his career was like 1973 to 1987. I was like, I've never heard of this guy. Like, that's weird. You would think, guys, he was a quarterback.
Somebody with that much time.
He was a quarterback as well. So I thought this has to be something weird. So I just clicked on it out of curiosity. And Tim, Tony Adams has a wild story. So I'm just going to quickly tell you.
Please.
He was a Utah State quarterback in the early 70s. The Chargers drafted him in the 14th round of the 1973 draft, as you do. There were many more rounds back then. He never played for them. He then went to play for someone called the Hartford Knights, so close to your current living area in the great state of Connecticut. Is it a state or it's a state, right? Not Commonwealth. I want to make sure I get that right.
They're all the same thing. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. But he played for the Hartford Knights of the Atlantic Coast Football League in 1973. Then he played in something called the World Football League for the Southern California Sun in 1974. He was all league back in those days. 23 touchdowns, 18 interceptions got you all league. It was a different time. And then he finally ended up playing for the Chiefs. So
the real NFL.
Yeah, so he got drafted, never played for the Chargers, bounced in a couple of regional football leagues, made the Chiefs in 1975, was there for 4 years and started 7 games, appeared in 50.
I know where this is going.
9 touchdowns and 22 interceptions in that time. A different era.
Yeah.
Then he played 2 years in the CFL, so played for the Toronto Argonauts, 1979 to 1980. Fine. 7 years later. Yeah, go on. Tell me.
So you mentioned he played a couple of years in the CFL, but his last year in the NFL prior to what we're about to discuss was 1978, where he played in 16 and started 2 games. Interesting as a quarterback to play in 14 games and not starting. But anyhow, played in 16 games in 1978, played in 0 games in the NFL for the ensuing 9 seasons before making a comeback in the strike-shortened year of 1987 as a scrub, and played for, was it the Purple People Eaters? Was it Minnesota?
It was Minnesota. They weren't the Purple People Eaters by this stage.
No,
because they were retired.
Fair.
But yeah, he played 3 games in 1987 for the Vikings in the strike season. He hadn't played professional football for 7 years. He was 37 years old, and he played 3 games for the Vikings. So Tony Adams of yesterday.
Do you know what his record was in those 3 games?
Not good.
Over.
It was a donut.
Over.
That's tough.
Yeah, donut.
But yeah, so I just wanted to tell that because that's a weird and wacky tour through what the professional football ranks used to be. That's the NFL, the Atlantic Coast Football League, the World Football League, the CFL, and then back to the NFL at 37 for a quick swan song before moving on to pastures new at 37 years old. So Tony Adams,
quick hitters, Luke. Quick hitters coming at you. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Aaron Rodgers made an appearance at MetLife Stadium this weekend, throwing the ball before the game. I wouldn't call it working out before the game, but certainly standing and gingerly leaning
and moving
on the torn Achilles. Made noise about how his season may not be over when he went out in week 1. Any truth to this? Let's say the Jets sneak in the playoffs. Any chance? Or is this just Aaron Rodgers is so upset that the team is playing reasonably well and he's not in the headlines?
A couple of years ago, I would have said it's completely impossible. The Cam Akers thing makes me wonder if just medical science has come a lot further than we realize, because Cam Akers tore his Achilles in week 3 or something, I think, that year, and then ended up playing for the Rams in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So listen, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, he's going to credit some wackadoodle alternative medicine bullshit and say it's because he didn't get the COVID vaccine that he's so healthy or some nonsense, whatever Pat McAfee's saying him paying him to say these days.
Tens of millions of dollars.
Yes. So I'm going to say there's a non-zero possibility. I will say to everyone who's getting all hyped up about it, there is quite a substantial difference between standing still and lightly throwing the ball and playing quarterback at the NFL level. So I'm going to say
I don't
it's
know,
not a
man. He was
0%
stepping
chance.
into it.
If they don't make the playoffs, no. If they do make the playoffs, I'm going to say 5%. He's also 38, so like you don't heal that fast. But that's I'm going to give him a 5% chance.
Well, here's what I'll tell you: if Zach Wilson gets you to the postseason, let the kid play.
I agree with you.
We will see how that comes out. Moving to the other side of the tri-state into a team that was not in the DFI coming into the season, but will almost certainly be in it as we talk in the offseason. The New York Football Giants, the Bills, did their level best to add one more team to the teams that shouldn't have, are winning games that shouldn't be winning and losing games that shouldn't be losing.
With backup quarterback.
What was your view on the last series, or on the game if you'd like, but on the last series? They get the pass interference call in the end zone to get the one on time down. The refs apparently decided one was plenty.
One's enough.
Looked like maybe they should have had another one. What's your take on the end of the game there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave maybe the last sequence to you because you're watching it live and I wasn't. So maybe you can give me the real time thoughts. But it really just made me think the end of the first half. Brian Daboll must have been shitting bricks after this game with fury, if one can shit with anger, because the end of that first half, they had first and goal from I think it was at the 1, right? Clock has stopped, but there's 13 seconds left. Tyrod seems to check out of a play. Why you even are giving him the option to check?
Well, based on Daboll's reaction, I don't think he had the option.
Well, yeah, he seems to check out of a play and then an inside handoff. Like the chances, NFL plays take a while to run. If they ran a sneak, maybe they could have got back. Maybe. It's a big, big maybe. Or at least you just throw an end zone fade, touchdown, or out the back. And all it made me think was, to your point, they could have won this game. The Bills doing the thing that they doing more and more, which is just not being interested in winning for some reason. And they actually would have won this game if they'd scored a touchdown on that play. So,
or if they kicked a field goal, right? So they could have kicked a field goal at the end.
Right. Yeah. If they kicked a field goal in any situation, they would have won. And all I could think about was the end of the first half going, Tyrod, why?
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, watching the game there at the end, it's one of those, as a fan, you really want to hate on the officials and say, I mean, it was a terrible call. It was a
terrible no call. Terrible no call.
I mean, at the end of the day, it was defensive holding. And then the defensive holding became pass interference once the ball was in the air. And I'm terrible with names. All these, I don't know if it's McCauley or whoever their
it's Terry McCauley.
referee.
I think the
Sunday night games.
Sunday night games. Terry McCauley.
Whoever it is.
It is Terry McCauley.
And Terry McCauley's like, well, it's only defensive holding if the ball's not in the air. And I almost wanted to jump through the television at him. First of all, it starts when the guy's crossing the goal line. The ball's not yet in the air. Second of all, when the ball becomes in the air, it doesn't stop being a foul. It just starts being defensive pass interference.
Yeah, it's a different penalty.
Yeah, and the idea that a defensive hold has a lower bar than defensive pass interference, to me, is just maddening. That's not how that was intended to. It doesn't matter. The point is, he was held, and then he was interfered with, and then blatantly so for the entirety of the play. And the refs are always reticent to throw that flag, especially having thrown it the play before. You get people who say, it's rigged and trying to give the Giants a win at home. It was in Buffalo, I guess, but the Giants aren't any good, trying to give the Giants a win. It was obviously pass interference. The Giants didn't deserve to win that game, regardless of what happened at the end. And so, as a independent observer, I think you can look and go, yeah, they got screwed at the end, but let's be honest, they screwed themselves the whole game. So,
yeah,
if that's not consent, I don't know what is.
You can't have the takeaway. It's like we said about the Broncos over the season, right? You can't have the takeaway of a game be like, well, we sucked for the entire game, but on the last play we got hosed. It's like, well, no, if you sucked for the entire game, you really shouldn't be complaining about the last play.
That's right.
Sure,
you almost stole the game. They almost let you steal it, and they didn't quite.
Exactly. Like we said, if you just kick a field goal on first and goal at the end of the first half, you've won the game. You didn't. You lost the game. That's what bad teams do.
Yep. And that's exactly what they did.
I have a quick one for you, Tim. Just more of just a fun stat.
A Luke Grundy quick hit. Hit me.
Yeah, I've just two stats that I want to hit you with, and then we can get out of here. But number one, Dolphins won again, scored a lot of points again. I don't know if you're familiar, but the Miami Dolphins are quite good at scoring points. That's become a thing.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd look up like I was thinking like they only seem to score touchdowns. And I decided to look up how many touchdowns they've scored. They've scored 30 touchdowns in 6 games. Do you want to have a guess how many made field goals they have?
Well, if they've got 30 touchdowns, that's
30 touchdowns.
15.
5.
5.
So the Dolphins in 6 games
35.
have scored 6 times as many touchdowns as they've kicked field goals.
I don't have anything to contextualize that with, but it sounds like a lot.
I mean, Tim, it's a lot. It's a hell of a lot. Basically, they just get in the end zone every time. Like, they've missed 2 field goals. So it's not that they've attempted, the kick is terrible. They've attempted 7 field goals. They've scored 30 touchdowns in 6 games. Absolutely mind-numbing statistic. And the other one I want to end on, and it's fitting because I have the Brett Kern jersey behind me. For those who aren't watching, I have the Brett Kern jersey
MV punter.
And I just want to give a shout out to the current Titans punter, Tim, who made my favorite play of the weekend. Not much to write home about if you're a Titans fan right now because the team sucks. And we mentioned PJ Walker making a great tackle. A punter making a play on a return is always good to see. Devin Duvernay of the Ravens returning a punt, flying down the field for the Ravens in London. And who catches him and pushes him out of bounds, Tim? It was none other than current Titans punter Ryan Stonehouse. So I just wanted to give you the stat on his speed. Now, Next Gen Stats, they track the player speed, right?
Yeah,
if you're running over 20 miles an hour, you are fast.
I know where this is going. That's quick.
19.76 miles per hour he hit on that play. He's a punter.
A punter.
So Devin Duvernay's in for a tough time in the special teams film session today or yesterday or whenever it was because he got run down by the punter. But the punter's running almost 20 miles an hour.
Running pretty quick.
These guys are good athletes. That's it. That's all I got. How can I top that?
Well, I can't top that, but I do have one more in hidden, a real quick hidden play because love a good hidden play.
Love a good hidden play.
You were just talking about the Miami Dolphins. They score lots of points. They do score lots of points. However, they were down 14-0 at the beginning of this game against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers had things going. It makes it 14-7. The Dolphins after their first touchdown. Carolina driving down the field as we approach the middle of the second quarter, and they have a 4th and 8 at midfield. And a 4th and 8 at midfield, they say, you know what? Screw it. We're 0-5. Let's go win this football game.
Team shit. Let's try something.
And they, Johnny Hecker, all-star Johnny Hecker, competes a pass to Laviska Shenault, who I thought had the first down. He did not have the first down, is how it was ruled on the field. The replay official challenged the short of the line to game because it is a turnover, because it was the 4th down, so it's a change of possession. So they reviewed to make sure. They said the ruling on the field stands. Not confirmed, but stands. And from that moment, so the Panthers had gone punt, touchdown. They were driving. They were in the opponent territory, effectively in field goal position after that play if they were able to keep going. From that, they go punt, miss field goal, punt, downs, downs. Miami, from that point, went touchdown, punt, touchdown, punt, interception, touchdown, end of game. So, I'm not saying momentum's a thing. I'm saying the Panthers had it going. They did the thing that we tell them to do, right? Victory doesn't come in the mail. Go for it. The NFL jobs them over an inch, and, all of a sudden, it was all she wrote. They were going the other way. So,
tough times.
With that, we will leave you fine people. Thank you for checking out the Half Yard Line and whatever medium you have done so. Please hit the like, subscribe, rate, review, whatever buttons they have down there to say, hey, these kind of podcasts is kind of fun. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, please do that. Drop a note in the comment box. Starting to get some pretty interesting comments there. People are leaving. We're interacting with folks. It's kind of fun. So get in there and get in on that. If you're a Jet fan, congratulations. We definitely want to hear from you guys this week. A big win. If you're a Browns fan, we've been hating on you guys for the better part of our entirety, my lifetime as a Steeler fan. But certainly since the podcast generation, get down there and get your licks in. This is your time to shine, DFI.
Yeah, hit us on socials at Half Yard Line Pod. If you're on anything, we're on there. So hit us up on there too.
Indeed. We'll catch you guys next week. Ta-ta.
Bye-bye.